So I was wanting to talk about the unity that we find within ourselves with God, and then expand that to so that we see and feel that more importantly with everyone that we come and every living creature that we come in contact with on this journey. I was wondering like what your experience was with it and how to further embrace that.
So, in my in my experience, you cannot have it. It's hard to see the divine in anybody if you can't see it in yourself, because the judgment stops with ourselves. And until we fully look in the mirror of our own heart, are willing to look in the mirror and see the eyes looking back at us, are are our eyes. They're God's eyes, but they're our eyes. And we begin to stand in the gaze of that love. And instead of looking and running, like getting a revelation and running out and wanting to apply it and tell everybody about it, but standing in the gaze of that, of the love coming forth from our own inner being, is it's like standing in the sun. It hits the surface of your skin, slowly gets below the surface and permeates all the way to the bone. And we have to stand in that willingly and objectively ourselves, looking at what we see through the reflection, looking at it, and then allowing it to change us and allowing it to soften us and create in us, bringing forth the compassion, the empathy, and the really profound knowledge that the journey that we're on is individually ours first. And then we're one traveling in a group, right? We're one connected to, we're a thread in the tapestry. So it's so important that we work in our own thread first, and then we blend into the tapestry. We're able to then go out of that permeation of love and introspection and growth, um, and I'm not just talking about going in and being like, oh, I'm gonna bask. I mean, there's that too, but it's going in with an intention of, who am I? What are the potentials for this spiritual being that I am here on this earth? You know, if I am looking into the eyes of God and seeing my eyes, what how does that potential play out for me while I'm walking on the earth? How am I being different than that? In a real loving way, just looking. I mean, we do it all the time. We look at other people and we put ourselves next to them and we go, "Oh, I want to be like that." And how am I not being like that? We do it all the time. Advertising's the whole point of advertising, but doing it in the light of our divine, eternal, powerful creation being, we begin to evolve ourselves, and we do it quietly, and we do it personally. And then as we move through life, we naturally, organically begin to see others, the environment as united with us, and other people as our brothers and sisters, as other eyeballs, other divine beings. It happens organically because we've changed. If we want to set out and go, I'm going to tolerate and see everybody as my sibling, it's going to be an active, conscious, deliberate choice. Sometimes we do make that choice, but ultimately we want to become divine love, ultimately. And divine love doesn't think about loving us. It loves us unconditionally. It doesn't have to think about it. It doesn't have to figure out how to have unity. Unity happens out of the being, because that is what it is, right? So it's
Hmm.
getting deeper into the attributes of divine presence that we are. We are unity. We already are at the core of our being and our high self. What we're doing is moving out from under the the experiential self and into living in our high self. And then it is organically happening. It's not something that we're doing like a diet or exercise routine. It's a natural outflow of who we are being. Like breathing is natural to being alive, so is loving. When we move, we lose judgments and we lose concepts of black and white, right and wrong. This is bad, person is bad, or whatever it is. And we begin to see people as divine beings on a spot in their journey, just like us.
So when we talk about like, like looking at it from like like sort of you mentioned, like from almost like an internal first before we look at the external. So then you think about like, I guess the things that come to mind is like you look at a dog and you're like, I love dogs, but you feel you love dogs when you get home and that dog's wagging its tail or just kissing you for no reason, stuff like that, right? So in with your the thread that we're sort of on, how do we get to that kind of like, for lack of better terms, intimacy with something as huge as whatever name you want to put on him or her, God, the divine, like that? It's like you're actually, like when you're using dog example, it's like you say you love your dog, but when you sit there with your dog, you're like, I love my dog because you're feeling it.
Yeah.
So how does that, like, what's the process you found that really works with your? It's not like I know I'm loved by God, but I feel I'm loved by God, divine source, whatever.
Yeah, it's meeting my high self, the divine love internally. The relationship becomes personal when I see myself for who I am, and I see myself as one with the one, and we can't do that without going in. So again, we're going in,
Yeah.
and we're entering the garden, the sanctuary of our high self, and we're realizing we are God with our own personality, and um, we're loved by the eternal large ocean. We're floating around in the ocean expressing through our personality, but until we see ourselves that way, it is not personal. The personal part, the tail wagging, so
Mhm.
excited to be here, I love you
Yeah.
unconditionally, comes through face to face time, because then we begin to understand, get past the concepts of not unconditional love, right? Get past the judgment aspect we've been taught, and we begin to see and feel and experience within our own soul unconditional love. And when we experience that within our own soul, within our own time, then um, connecting with love, and then feeling the love all around us, and then going deeper into that relationship, then we begin to own it as a reality.
How, all right, kind of like a two-part question. One is that, so we talk about going within. I know like we both practice like meditation, so forth, like that as a way of going within. The first part is like, have you found that, that that it, whether it be a time during the day, whether it be a certain posture, do you find like one is more, for lack of better terms, productive or maybe no, not productive, more intimate? In other words, for example, in the morning as opposed to the evening, or both, or sitting up, lying down. Does that make any kind of difference?
It's a personal, um, every person's different. I'm a I'm a morning person. I get a lot of my spiritual activity, my revelation in the morning. I know people who it's totally the opposite. It's personality driven. You know,
Mhm.
it's just how we're wired. Um, Personally, laying down, I don't enjoy because it's I might lie down at the end or something, but it's
Yeah.
unless I wake in the night and then I'll lay there and communicate. But um, it's sleeping for me. It's not comfortable. It's not as easy to keep a focus um, in my breath, and I'm also it's really more all of the sitting up tall aligns your spine and it makes room for breath. So then we're not uncomfortable, slouchy, and all distracted by all of that. So sitting up does that. Also keeps us alert and stuff. So, but really, for me, it's the quality of the conversation. Um, I'm not going in to float around. Or, um, sometimes yes, but I don't. The conversation doesn't begin and end with that practice. It's continuous all day long. So I'm hooked in as much as I can all day long, moment by moment. And then when I go in with um, an intention for the conversation, because then I'm focused, and if it's in painting on the canvas for me, then I go in with the intention of living in that reality, and I go into my meditation living in that reality, or I want to be in the love, and and I go in and I have a conversation. I have an internal emotional conversation or expression, so to speak, not
Mhm.
words. So for me, it's I look at the relationship like it is a real, um, a live relationship, and I need the connection every day, all the time. Like some people grab the phone, they're constantly texting their best friend, their mother, whatever. Need the feedback, want the feedback, want to jump in their arms, whatever. Okay, so I do that with the divine, right? That's my um, and I want to connect with the lover of my soul in a meaningful way every day. Often, deeply at least once, with intention. But sometimes a day will go by, I'll be talking all day long, I'll be connected, I'll be in love and gratitude and moving and shaking, and then it might be a day or two, and then I'll have a sit down time. Okay, so instead of acting like the relationship is this mechanical system, I have to check off the hours and the time. And but I mean, it's good
Yeah.
to schedule because then it happens, right?
Right.
And there's times I've scheduled 15, 20-minute, 30-minute blocks throughout the day in and out, like when I'm really pressing into something. But um, sometimes I'll be like, okay, I need to really get in and spend some time after a couple days. Stuff happens, stuff comes up, but I'm not disconnected in between. I'm like, I need to hear deeper. I need to love more. So I'm going to set aside an hour now. I've had a couple days with ongoing conversation, and you even see that if you want to look at parables and stories and in the Bible. Christ, he didn't go meditate every day. He went along taught teaching, and then all of a sudden um, he would leave for a day, right, to make that connection. So um, I don't know what happened with that. So it's not a law or rule. Um, it's a living relationship. We maybe, well, people do set rules for their friends, how they're supposed to behave and everything else. We don't do that. How do you want the relationship to be? I want it to be fluid and constant. with intimacy, just like I would want a relationship. I can't hear you.
Got it now. So this is interesting. So going full circle with that. So I'll use the analogy of like, like the girl, the man, whatever, like the most popular one in school. And it's like, there's this like almost call it an aura around that person. Almost like you got to get like courage to talk to that person. Right. So you have to break it down in your mind to be like, hey, I want to have this relationship. So how did you find to take something as, all encompassing as the divine to make it so like, like what you were saying before, like where you almost feel every drop of that ocean?
I had to get to the point where I realized it is me. I am a drop. I had to really press in because my teaching wasn't, it's if you liken yourself to God, you better duck, and
Yeah.
stuff. And um, we're drops out of the divine ocean. And so I began to focus on, if I am a drop, just like I am a child, like my parents, um, I'm a product of my parents, right? So there's some pieces of parents in me, but mostly there's me.
Yeah.
You would recognize my parents probably in my mannerisms, and definitely in my thought processes sometimes and stuff, because that's the infusion I got. So I thought of it that way. So if I'm a drop out of the ocean and I possess every attribute of the ocean on a smaller scale, then what is that? What makes up the drop? And what makes up the attributes of divine love? And then I began to see, this is me on a smaller scale. So the intimacy is built in because it's me. Like the intimacy is built in to the relationship, just like um, with family, the intimacy is built in.
Mhm.
Um, Even if you don't see them for a super long time or spend a lot of time, it feels different when you do see them. Like it feels like family in a way.
That's a
So
great analogy.
yeah, so we are coming around to seeing and knowing who we really are. That's the standing in the light, the allowing the love, the warmth of that love to move the persona expanded away, so that we begin to see who we really are, and um, how we're being in the world. And then we can see it in complete surrender to in the field of love, so that we can begin to move in the direction of being more our drop personality, and less the striving, surviving um, life that we've been living up to this point, looking at life
I,
through that perspective. So it's shifting our perspective. If I am divine and I am a drop from the ocean and I am light and life and love, then what does that look like in action? What does that look like in reality? It must be different than what's happening now, because I didn't know it before. So
right.
yeah, so it has to be different. So it's all about surrendering, looking with openness to allowing the the allowing the divine to show us where we can make room. The struggling, the suffering, the striving, that's all on us. The gripping, the holding, I have to hold on and control. you know, I think this is the blueprint for my life or the path for my life. I got a message, I had a conversation and I got an answer. Now I'm going to leave the room and go implement it because I'm supposed to go work. Right? Nobody said that. Who said that? Right? So
Right.
go back in. Right? We're not supposed to jump and run all the time. We're supposed to surrender, be still, allow ourselves to be infused, allow ourselves to the light to be uh, pulled up through and out of us. And in the process, it's going to shatter the stained glass over the sanctuary window, and we'll get light in there and light coming out, right?
Every time we talk, there's at least one lightning bolt you share, and I love that. I mean, it's true because I think you're the analogy with the family because I don't think there's anybody that I mean, like both of us have family on the West Coast. It's like there's a very difference of whether we see each other or not. When you're hearing that person, there's an intimacy, like you said. So that is remarkable. So thank you for that. That's awesome. You know, I like I could. I mean, that just really resonated because to your point, I mean, you can be around 1,000 people, but when you're with family, there is a there's a difference.
There's a difference. Yeah. And also for me, I I make hard decisions, and I'm like, if there's that relationship for me to have, that divine intimacy, I'm going to have it. So I'm going to press in to get it. You
How
know,
do you know when that? How do you know when
moving
that?
away from waiting for things to fall on us or float down and cover us, or like as if, you know, why would that happen? Like as if we're so special. I mean, we're supposed to participate in the relationship. So when I get it, I'm a drop and there's more for me. I set a task to press in. I chase it.
Do
Right?
you? How do you know? Is it just something you realize or you feel in your heart when there is that calling to press in?
Truth resonates with truth. And when it comes to the divine, um, relationship, love, and all of that, when we hear, when we're seeking for more, something deeper, even if we don't know what it is, but we know there's more. We don't feel that we're as intimate. There's a gap. We feel it. We're seeking to remove the gap, to come in face to face, to come into that place of oneness. Then truth will come and it will resonate. It'll be like you'll hear it, and then you'll be like, yes, I know that. Like
Yeah,
that's it.
yeah,
That resonates with me, like in a huge way, in a knowing way. Doesn't resonate with my brain. It resonates in my gut, in my heart. Like I know that's, and so I will press into that. I want to know more about that. I want to understand that more. I will ask questions around that and move on the direction I'm getting. All of it is personal within myself. It's not for everybody else. You know, it's for me. So
yeah.
I get in there and I work it out. And then I'm like, this is what I was looking for. This is, I get it now. Or I sense that I have changed. And I sense the change when I am interacting with people and in the teaching that I'm doing and all of that. I experience the elevation to a different place within myself every time. So it's knowing there's more. And I decided if there's doubts or fears or I mean, I decided a year ago I'm not having anxiety ever again. Like I don't need to have it. So I moved through eliminating whenever I would think about it as something that's that feels anxious, I'd be like, why is it anxious? Why am I feeling that way? Does that line up to the truth inside me? Right? I don't believe the divine is anxious. No anxiety there. So that's me, right? That's a
Yeah.
separation. So uh, a lot of it is patterning. It's patterning thinking, or a sense of I have to control, or I have to perform, or I have to do something, where when in reality, being is where we learn the doing. We begin being, and then we get the 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 work. I mean, uh, I was talking with someone about this the other day. You can like my movement practice, for example. I had that practice, but it was to its end. I mean, super successful, but that wasn't the end for me. There's more, right? So, uh, in letting it go, um, I could think, well, how how will I serve now, right? How will I serve? But I could go um, pick grapes at a vineyard, and people would come up for my message. Right?
Mhm.
The message is always going to be there within us, birthing forth as we grow, as we get intimate, as we become more and more elevated. The message is constant and always there. And no matter what we're doing, the message will be there for people and they will come and get it. So it's not, we try to go in through what we're doing. I'm going to have a relationship with the divine through what I'm doing. I'm going to make a plan to do this great service so that I can be spiritual and do, right? But the doing, which is great, it's great, but you're going to find possibly your hook and left and right along the way, because we can't possibly conceive in our mind our highest and best. We can moment by moment, but not, we can have an overall vision, right? But the relationship defines the service and the outflow of love from our heart and into the lives that are there to receive from us whatever the message is.
Second lightning bolt, being, then doing. That's awesome.
Yeah, right.
That is.
So
That is. Go ahead.
that's the it's about surrender, letting go of gripping, controlling, planning, driving, pushing, pulling. So,
Another great talk, Audrey.
yeah.
Yeah.
Another
Click
great
it then.
conversation with John.
All right, cut it. Now this is the cut part.
Okay.